So you rock up to the library, you meet your friends, and you all sit down and everyone begins studying. Or not quite. Maybe some people get distracted and they start playing with their phones. Other people end up watching YouTube. Some people end up going out and getting something to eat. What was meant to be a well-intentioned attempt to facilitate group study ended up becoming a whole lot of procrastination. And then you have the lone wolves. These people don't like studying with other people. These students go to the silent areas of the library or they stay at home to study, and they see group study as only a social activity and see it as highly inefficient, distracting, and noisy. And finally, you have the third camp, which is what I was as a student. I was someone who did a mix of both. I'd enjoy the group study because of the socializing and the fun, but I'd also like to have the time to myself to make sure that I could actually get lots of work done. Depending on the circumstances, whether I was on a time crunch or I had some weaknesses to address myself, I'd choose one or the other. I would have situations where I would try and leverage other people's knowledge, or I would have those times where I'd study by myself because I needed to get to a certain level first on my own. So which one is better? Is there any value in studying as a group? Or are you better off studying alone? Or should you do a little bit of both? Hi, I'm Archer. I'm a senior learning coach at I Can Study, and we help students to learn how to learn. We've taught thousands of students from over 120 countries how to become better learners. So if you're new to this channel and you want to get better at learning, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos on this channel. Now, if you just listened to what I had to say just before, you probably are thinking that group study is a waste of time. And I'm here to say that they can be, but also studying alone can be as well. When it comes to group study, there's a common myth that group studying isn't effective because the common way that group studying is done isn't. But I would argue that deciding between studying in groups or studying alone probably isn't the right question to ask. Instead, we should be asking how to study effectively, whether it be in a group setting or studying alone. So let me share this African proverb with you. If you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. And what I can assure you is that it is the same when it comes to group studying. You just need to know how. And in case I haven't convinced you enough, just let this sink in for a second. The most successful, biggest research teams and companies in the world, they do things as teams. It's the possibility of combining multiple minds that can far outperform any one person. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you how to maximize the effectiveness of your group study sessions and how to go about it. But that starts with setting some clear rules and structures first, 5 to be exact. Let's get into it. So you want to be aware of these 5 rules to make your group study sessions way more effective. Number 1, prepare. 2, engage. 3, highlight. 4, assign roles. And number 5, reflect. Rule 1. It's super important to prepare for the group study session. Now, why would you? Well, one common problem with group studying is that it often turns into a fun hangout or time-wasting activity. This can be a huge pity because group studying can be super effective as a studying technique if you use it properly. However, I've personally seen too many groups of students in libraries just wasting hours away and not getting anything done. But here is the thing. Preparation is your secret weapon. And so, how should you prepare? Well, here are 2 mini steps you can take. Step number 1 is quiz creation. Before the group study session, each person should take the time to create a set of questions based on the topics that they plan to cover. These can be multiple choice, short answer questions, or even essay prompts. Imagine that you and your study group are gearing up for a history exam, and one of the topics that you will need to cover is World War II. How would you create questions for this topic? Now, be careful here. You don't want to just create questions that just test your ability to memorize information only. Often the better questions, they test your ability to relate information to one another. And at the same time, you have to prioritize which information is more important than the others. So your list of questions may look something like this. What were the main causes of World War II? And how did it differ from World War I? How did the war unfold in different theaters, such as Europe, Asia, and the Pacific? What were the significant turning points and battles during World War II? How did the aftermath of World War II shape the formation of the United Nations? And then you have step number 2. You want to swap and share your quiz questions with other study group members and ask them to complete the questions before they come to the session. In return, they should share their quiz questions with you. And each group member should attempt to answer the questions that they receive. Attempting the questions before the group study session serves 2 crucial purposes. Firstly, you pre-learn the material at a higher level and set the foundation for a more efficient group study. By creating and answering these questions beforehand, you're studying it at a higher level. You're actively engaging with the material in a way that promotes deeper understanding and retention. And so this initial exposure makes the group study session more productive. Think about it this way. You'll be armed with the questions on the topic after attempting the quizzes from your friends. So now the study session can focus on explaining gaps in everyone's understanding, rather than just starting from ground zero and learning the material together. But you want to be super careful about this one thing, and that is everyone should be pulling their weight. Only if everyone pulls their weight will everyone be able to benefit from the group study, even if some members have a less developed understanding of the topic than others. Now, think of it this way. It's like rowing a boat. One person alone can't really row a big boat very successfully. But when everyone in the team puts in high quality effort, you can row that boat very efficiently. And so everyone in the boat benefits, even if there are those weaker rowers. Because if there are, then they may be contributing less, but they're still progressing. Even the strongest rower is able to accomplish more in the team than he or she could themselves. Similarly, when everyone in the group comes prepared, you can cover much more ground and learn far more than any one person could do alone. Preparation not only saves you time, but also it ensures that your group study session is 10 times more effective. So, how do you actually conduct your group study sessions? Well, here are some ideas, which is rule number 2, engage in lessons or discussions over your test answers. One thing that you could do during a group study session is to assign one person as a teacher for the session. This person has the role of teaching a specific topic to the group, and the other group members, they'll listen in. Other members then can ask the teacher to elaborate on incredibly important parts or discuss together points that they're not entirely sure about. For example, let's say you're studying for a biology exam. You and your group members decide that you're going to focus on the topic of photosynthesis. One of your group members volunteers to be the teacher. He or she can give a short lesson on the different stages of photosynthesis. They can then ask the other group members for feedback. One of the group members, they might say, hey, you didn't mention the differences between chloroplasts and chlorophyll. And then maybe you have someone else in the group who's going like, oh, you're right. I've never really considered that difference or understood it in that particular way. And then you might realize that you too are unsure about the difference between chloroplasts and chlorophyll in that way. So this discussion process helps you find blind spots in your knowledge. And these are blind spots that you'd never be exposed to if it were not for this group session. Well, why? Because people view things in different ways, and they can point out to you your blind spot that you would have never considered. Another way to conduct a group study session is to review your answers and quizzes together. Reviewing is a great way to learn from your mistakes and to identify any topics that you need to review. And so this is how that works. For each question that you review, discuss why you got the question right or wrong. If you got the answer wrong, try to figure out why. Did you misread it? Did you make a careless mistake? Did you not know the material? By reviewing your quizzes together, you can learn from each other's mistakes and identify any topics that you need to review. So next time you're studying with a group, take some time to sketch out how you will conduct the session. Will you assign one person to be the teacher? Will you review your answers to pre-done quizzes together? And just as a side note, if you're running out of time before an exam, the group study time could be used to do and discuss the quizzes together. No matter what you choose, make sure that your study session is focused on finding your knowledge gaps and blind spots. That is the best way to make sure that you're always learning and growing. But many people are afraid to call each other out on their blind spots, which is why rule number 3 is so important, which is to be willing to highlight your friends' blind spots. The key idea here is that you have to force yourself to be a little hard on your friends. Otherwise, the discussion in rule 2 will just fail. This can be a tough one because we all want to be agreeable and avoid conflict. But it's important to remember the actual purpose of this group studying session, which is to help each other grow and learn more. And that means creating this safe space where you can be honest with each other, even if it's uncomfortable. So if you're in a group study session and you hear one of your friends say something that's incorrect, don't be afraid to just highlight that error that they made. For example, let's say that you're studying for a physics test, and one of your friends says that Newton's first law of motion states that an object will stay in motion unless acted upon by a force. And you know that this is slightly incorrect because it should say unbalanced force. because there could be, two forces acting together and they could just cancel each other out. You could say something like, hey, I'm unsure if that's exactly right. I've seen in my textbook that there's this word unbalanced, and I think it's because of this reason. What are your thoughts? If everyone understands that the group study session is about growing and learning together, your friend wouldn't feel embarrassed that you highlighted his or her mistake publicly. It's also important to be open in having your own blind spots highlighted. If one of your friends points out that you don't totally understand something, remember that this is exactly what is going to help you learn. The more mistakes you make in this safe environment, the fewer mistakes you'll make in your exam. This open feedback culture is important. So remember that the goal of this group studying session is to learn from one another. And that means being willing to be wrong sometimes. So here's a quick tip. If you're feeling uncomfortable about highlighting a friend's mistake, try to frame it as a question. For example, instead of saying, "You're wrong," you could say, "Are you sure about that? Can you explain that to me in more detail?" A softer phrasing here is really just going to help that conversation become less confrontational and more productive. Another idea to make your group study sessions more productive is that you want to assign roles, and you guessed it, that's rule number 4. One of the biggest problems with group study sessions is that they can be inefficient. One person might be carrying the team while others are distracted or not participating fully. To avoid such inefficiencies, it's helpful to assign roles at the beginning of the study session. Assigning roles will help to ensure that everyone has a specific job to do and that that session always stays on track. So here are some roles that you might want to consider assigning. The leader. This person sets the agenda and the timeline for the study session. They also keep the group on track by ensuring that planned breaks and work times are adhered to. The police. This person ensures that everyone is putting their phones and other distractions away. No matter what roles you choose, make sure that everyone in the group understands their responsibilities. And make sure as well that everyone is comfortable speaking up if they need help or if they feel like the group is getting off track. By assigning roles, you can help to ensure that your group study sessions are more efficient and productive. And you can also help to ensure that everyone in the group is learning and growing. One thing to note is that when you're assigning roles, try to choose roles that people are more comfortable with and that they're good at. If you're not sure who you should assign to a particular role, it never hurts to ask for volunteers. And at the end of the day, you want to reflect on the session, which is rule number 5. It's important to take some time to reflect on how the group study session went. Reflection is not only going to help you with identifying what went well, but will also help you identify what can be improved. And so here are a few questions that you can ask yourself. Did we accomplish all the goals that we had for the session? Did everyone participate fully? Were there some topics that we didn't understand so well? Were there any distractions or disruptions that we were dealing with? And what should be the next steps that we take for our next session? For example, if you found that you didn't have enough time to cover all the material that you wanted to, you could try and start the session earlier, or you could take fewer breaks. Or if you found that there was a particular distraction that was happening, you can find a quieter place to study or get rid of that distraction. Maybe you also realize that everyone focused too much on regurgitating the causal factors of World War II rather than how the factors relate to the other historical events. So you could then make a rule to dedicate, let's say, 30 minutes for future sessions to discuss how different historical events relate to one another. And once you've reflected on the session, share your thoughts with the other group members, and this will help you develop a plan for improvement going ahead. So if you made it to the end of the video, then you now have 5 rules that you can immediately deploy into your group study sessions to get the most out of them. Here's a quick recap. Rule number 1, prepare your group study sessions. Number 2, engage in lessons or discussions over your test answers. Rule number 3, don't be afraid to call out your friends' blind spots. 4, assign roles so that you're more efficient in covering all bases. And number 5, reflect on the session to evaluate how you felt it went and so you can improve on it for next time. If you found this video useful, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear about what you're going to be applying from this video. And if you want to become a better learner, head over to iCanStudy.com to learn more. I'll catch you guys in the next video. See you later.